Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Completionist. For this episode, guys, I'm going to do the second episode of a brand new series that I started last year. And I'm going to do another episode of my personal struggles as a video game completionist. The first episode I did for this series, I got a lot of really excellent feedback from it, and a lot of people often question, why I even put myself through the pain of actually completing games, but the games that I have completed to 100% so far, some of these games have some very interesting and yet frustrating stories associated to them. So this was another series that I wanted to keep going with, because these are kind of like the most enjoyable videos for me to make, and even for me to watch, is because I like it when people tell video game stories about sharing their experiences when it comes to playing and beating games, and some of the video games that I've completed over the last 5 to 10 years have had some pretty hilarious stories associated to them. So anyway, guys, the game that I'm going to talk to you about is a very beloved SNES classic, and this game is known for being the best game in the series, and also for having probably one of the best and most magical video game soundtracks ever released for the 16-bit era. And the reason why that this game is so memorable is because even though I enjoyed completing this game almost made me rage quit really, really badly. And the funny thing about this story is that as this was happening, I was actually on a Skype conversation with a whole bunch of gaming friends from YouTube, and they actually got to hear me get really frustrated trying to get this game completed. Now, the game that I'm going to talk to you about is this game right here, and that is Donkey Kong Country 2: Diddy's Conquest. But Derek, Donkey Kong Country 2 is such a beloved game, like the best in the Donkey Kong Country series. Look at all the awesome music, like Sticker Brush Symphony and a whole ton of other music for that game. How can such a beautiful game give you so much difficulty? Why is it even in this series to begin with? Well, it's in this series for one main reason, and that reason is one fucking level. And that level is known as Antics. Now, if anyone has played this game before and is very well aware of the level called Antics, they know firsthand how fucking frustrating that level is. Before I start talking about the level, as I was completing the game, I was like really enjoying it. They basically took everything from the Donkey Kong Country formula and they just made it that much better. The music was better, the environments were better. They fleshed out that game as much as they could, for its time. Because the original Donkey Kong Country is such a timeless SNES classic, and really did a great job of reinventing the Donkey Kong license. And for as enjoyable as that game was, and that game had a fuck ton of promotion, like you wouldn't believe. And it was literally one of those games that every household had. Every time I used to go to a kid's house that had a Super Nintendo, the original Donkey Kong Country was always going to be one of the few games they'd always have there with their SNES, and I just remember playing the original game a lot. Even back in the mid 1990s, in the very early days of the internet, and mid 1990s, in the very early days of the internet. I tried to complete the game, but I really had no access to any guides or to try to find any of the secrets. So I had to find all of them on my own, and I didn't really do it as a kid. I got close. I got like 92, 93%, but you know, without the internet or without having a guide showing you where all the secrets were, some of them were actually pretty hard to find. And basically, when we got into the second game, they just took the original Donkey Kong Country experience and they just made it that much better. And it was only you know, within the last 4 or 5 years that I've actually sat down and completed the game. You know, I had played the game before. You know, I had rented it, you know, in the late 1990s. You know, when I was a teenager, and you know, I played it to the point of beating it, but you know, when you only have a video game rental for a couple of days, and even then, even in the late 1990s, I didn't have very good internet access at the time. I still couldn't find all the secrets in the game, because one of the biggest things with Donkey Kong Country 2 compared to the original is that there were a hell of a lot more secrets to find, because not only, you know, did you have to find the your typical bonus barrels, but there were also special DK coins you had to find as well, and there were like 2 final boss fights as well, and they really did an excellent job of fleshing the game out. So a couple of years ago, I actually, back when I was still collecting SNES games, I actually had a cart version of Donkey Kong Country 2, and you know, I finally said to myself, you know, I'm gonna sit down and actually play this. And you know, for the most part, you know, going through the game, you know, I was getting through it just fine. You know, finding all the bonus barrels. It's, you know, getting through the first couple of worlds, you know, really well. You know, not even losing a life, not even having any problems with it. You know, when I started to get to the carnival world, you know, that's when the difficulty started to ramp up a little bit. You know, I'd lose maybe 1 or 2 lives, you know, per level, just trying to learn the level through memorization, that kind of thing, and then you know, and then you got to the tower, and the levels got much harder, and you know, I probably spent anywhere from like 2 to 3 lives trying to get through each level, and then I made my way to the final boss, and I beat the game, but I still had to complete it. So besides the typical levels, you can also get access to a secret world called the Lost World. And in order to get to each level in the Lost World, you have to collect creme coins. And you can get creme coins, you know, from finishing tasks in the bonus barrels and actually beating the bosses of each specified world. And the levels in the Lost World were a lot harder than the normal levels you go through. But even though they did take quite a few lives to get through, you know, I slowly got through them. But oh Jesus! But the last level in the Lost World, before you would fight the final boss, and it's actually, you know, the true boss. In order to get 102% completion on the game, you know, you'd have to finish this final boss as well. But it was one level before that was probably one of the most difficult platforming levels I ever played in my entire life, and it was really fucking frustrating to the point where I literally almost broke the controller. So I got eventually getting through as much of the game as I possibly could. I think the last 2 things I had to do in that game was to beat the animal Antics level, and to then beat the boss in the Lost World as well. So I'd done everything. So got to the animal Antics level in Donkey Kong Country 2. And the Animal Antics level is a level in which you don't play as Diddy or Dixie. You actually play as your animal friends, and it's broke up into 5 sections to so that you can play every one of your animal friends, you know, for each section in the game. And you know, like the levels were technically difficult, but you know, with enough memorization you could get through them, because you know, the first part of the level you played as Ramby, the rhino, And then the second part of the level you played on guard as the swordfish, and then the next part of the level, you played as the spider. And that level got like a little difficult because it was some kind of difficult platforming involved with it. And progressively, I made through the game. And then I got to the bane of my fucking existence through that entire game, and it was the squawks section of that level. Now, to put into perspective of how mind-numbingly difficult this level was, is that the squawk section of the Animal Antics level took place in the vine forest, I guess. So you had to maneuver yourself around all the spiked vines. And the spiked vines were around you. They were on your sides, they were on the top, they were on the bottom. So if you touched the walls, you were dead. And to make matters worse, there were zingers, bumblebees all over the place. And bumblebees, for the most part, are invincible enemies. I think the yellow ones can be technically killed, but the orange ones, or the orange to reddish ones, can't. So, and these bees were moving in, somewhat predictable patterns, but some of the spaces you had to navigate through it were incredibly tight. And sometimes they would fly in a circle, in a very tight formation. So, as you play with squawks, you technically have to fly, and you have to keep pressing the button, to keep yourself off the ground. But to make matters even worse, not only did you have the spiked vines on the sides and the floor and the ceiling, and you had the bumblebees all over the place, but you had wind blowing you left to right. And the problem is that, in order to sort of control your character, you had to, like, the only way you could properly control your character is that you had to, like, position yourself and actually fly against the wind so you could keep yourself stabilized. Because if you went into the same direction as the wind would just, like, push you in that direction incredibly fast, and then you'd end up hitting the spiked wall, or one of the bumblebees, and then you'd end up dying. And this fucking level was so much trial and error, and and just to give you an idea, when I got into Animal Antics for the first time, I had maybe about 48 lives. I think about between 45 and 55 lives. So I really thought, okay, so this game's really difficult, but there's no way in hell I'm going to lose all these lives trying to beat that level. And I did. I could not get through that level the first time around, and I spent all 50 odd lives trying to beat that level, to beat that section of that level. And I couldn't fucking do it. I couldn't do it that night, and I was on a Skype conversation with 6 or 7 guys, and they could hear me like really kind of like gripping on the controller, basically hitting the controller, on my leg, thinking that somehow hitting the controller would make me play the game better. So, and the worst thing of all is that the squawks section wasn't the last section of that level. I remember one time I played it, and I actually got through the squawk section, and then I got to the final section of the Animal Antics level, and you were using the snake. And I remember I got to the final section of that level with the snake, and I had to take this really big jump. And the snake section of the level, is a little treacherous as well. There's a lot of jumping hazards, there's a lot of spikes as well, but it was nowhere near as difficult as the squawks level, but it was very annoying as well. And I think I had around maybe 11 or 12 lives left. And I finally got through the squawk section, and I felt pretty proud of myself. And I said, there's no fucking way that this could possibly get any worse. So then I got through the snake section of the level, and I got to the final section of that level before I would reach the end goal, and then call this level done, retired. I never have to fucking play it anymore. It's done. And I got to the final section, and I took this jump, and unfortunately, I don't remember if I took the jump too short or too long, but I ended up hitting spikes, and I died. I was that close. I felt like crying. I just said to myself, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that after going through that horrible squawk section of Animal Antics, that I allowed myself to get killed, and then I couldn't get through that level for the rest of the night, and I was just fucking done. I was just fed up. I said, guys, I gotta get out of this level. I gotta get to the save point. I just can't do it tonight. I'm just beyond frustrated because between the spikes and the zingers and the wind blowing you in every possible fucking direction, I just had enough. I literally rage quit. That's what I did. And it tends to happen, you know, when you're a completionist. You have to beat the level, and in Donkey Kong Country 2, you have to get 102% completion to consider this game fully completed. So I just fucking had enough of it that night. It was going on like 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m., and I had just had enough of it. So I'm just saying, guys, I just got to put the game down. I'm just beyond frustrated. I milked through 50 lives trying to get past that fucking Animal Antics level, and I can't do it. So, turned off the SNES, put the controller down, retired for the night. And the thing is that when you end up losing all your lives, when you restart the game again, then you're back to, you know, starting back at 4 to 5 lives again. So I said to myself, listen, I'm not going to let this fucking game get the better of me. So next morning, decided to put it in, and I just really sat down, calmed myself down, just started to put some focus in, and started to focus on it. The first thing I did is that I went back to some of the earlier levels, you know, to kind of rebuild my lives again. And I wasn't going to rebuild it up to 40 to 50 lives. I just wanted to do maybe 15 to 20 lives, and then try it at that. So after a few more tries, finally beat it. Finally got it over with. And even though I haven't played as many platformers as compared to a lot of other gamers as well, the level Animal Antics has remained to me probably one of the most frustrating platforming levels I've ever had the misfortune of playing. But you know, sometimes that's just one of the things that comes with being a gamer. You're going to have to go through levels that's going to test your patience, and it's going to have to test your skill. And that level was definitely one of them. Like I said, it's like I don't rage quit very often, but that level in that fucking game made me rage quit. And I'm sure anyone who's played and beaten or even completed Donkey Kong Country 2 know of the horror that I talk of. And it wouldn't surprise me if you guys probably got through that level on your first try. And you know, if you did, all the power to you. And I secretly hate you. But that was just simply one of the most difficult platforming levels I ever played. And that was a struggle to even get through. To basically sit there all night and just go through, you know, over 50 lives just to get through the fucking thing. It's definitely not making me look forward to playing Donkey Kong Country 3 and seeing if there's any more of that bullshit platforming madness that I had to go through in Donkey Kong Country 2. But I haven't played the third entry in the series yet, but I will eventually get around to it. So anyway, guys, that is my story of how a little level in Donkey Kong Country 2 almost drove me to madness. So Anyway, if you've actually had the misfortune of playing that level as well, be sure to share your little story down below in the description box. And anyway, guys, I want to thank you for watching another episode of The Completionist. And as always, take care, and I wish you nothing but the best. Later.